Ladies and gentlemen, before I make any comment about the evidence in this case, on behalf of Ms. Freywood, we would both like to thank you for the time and attention that you have made and the sacrifice that you've made to be jurors in this case. We understand it's a long trial and it was an imposition on your lives. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a case about opportunity, greed, and anger. In a time of weakness and vulnerability, the victim met the defendant. At that time, he was a law enforcement officer who was sworn to serve and protect others. Someone people would rely on and trust. However, this defendant belied and betrayed such trust. The defendant befriended Marcia Soul, and he became a part of her life. And he forged a relationship with her. And then he proceeded to exploit her. Greed is a powerful motivation when left unrestrained. First it corrupts, and then it leads to violence. Fearful of being caught, the defendant first tried to discredit Ms. Soul. He then had her Baker acted and restrained against her will. And then finally, he tried to kill her. He chose the perfect victim, someone who was alone, isolated, and vulnerable. Who could ever imagine that a Sarasota Sheriff's deputy could be capable of sending fake emails and make them appear as if they came from the victim in the case? Who could ever imagine that he'd send another vulgar email and make it appear as if the victim was manipulating the Sarasota Sheriff's Office? Ladies and gentlemen, I submit truth is sometimes stranger than fiction. And the more Marcia Soul denied sending these emails, the crazier she seemed. Her doctor believed she sent the suicide emails. Her neighbors believed it. The responding deputies believed it. They all believed that these emails were sent by her. And their purpose was first to discredit her, then exploit her. What the defendant didn't know is that there were unseen header information on these emails. And these emails would be traced back to him. And then soon, his stories would begin to unravel. Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you that this is a clear and uncomplicated case because of the evidence that's been presented. Defense counsel said in opening statement that the case rests on the victim, Marcia Soul. Really? Was that the evidence? What I'd like to do initially is to go through the evidence, and first I'm going to focus on the evening and afternoon of January 11th into the early morning hours of January 12th. This is going to be the evidence independent of Marcia Soul. What do you know? You know that the defendant speaks to Marianne Dombrow about 12:38 in the afternoon. He speaks to her for about 25 minutes, and you know that from the phone records. You also know that he receives an email from Philomena Pereira at 5:23, and Philomena's chat tells him Marcia's home. So on the afternoon of the 11th, he knows Marcia Soul is home from where he had her Baker acted. This is the first day she gets back, and he knows that. He knows it through the email and chat with Philomena Pereira. What else do you know? he calls Philomena Pereira at 6:22 that evening on the 11th. You also got his phone records. And at 8:44 that evening, he speaks to Deputy Carson Plank. That's a 14-minute phone conversation that he has with Deputy Plank. This is on the 11th. And during that 14-minute phone conversation, Deputy Plank sends this defendant the wings report of the deputies who responded to Marcia Soul's residence at 4:32 that afternoon. And from that, at 8:55, when that email, that chat, text message was sent to him, he knows at 8:55, Marcia is complaining about him, that she says he had her Baker-acted and he's exploiting her, essentially. He knows that, and he receives that information at 8:55. What else do you know? He meets his friend Troy King of 20 years. He meets him in the parking lot at the Starbucks on State Road 70, near I-75. And what does he do? He meets Mr. King when he's on the phone with Deputy Plank, when he's getting that wings report. And at that time, hey Troy, can I borrow your truck? He borrows his black pickup truck. Why is that important? The defendant, in his own words, in his interview with Detective Data, says his own truck is very distinguishable. He doesn't want to be seen in his own truck. Again, this is evidence independent of Marcia Soul. What else doesn't Marcia know? Marcia doesn't know that at about 9 o'clock that evening, the defendant turns off his cell phone, shuts it down. And why is that important? Because he knows by shutting down his cell phone, he cannot be located. No one can know where he's at by powering down his phone. It's not going to have a signal to a cell phone tower. He knows that as a deputy. He cannot be located. Now he can't be located in someone else's truck. Again, this is evidence independent of Marcia Soul. What else doesn't Marcia know? Marcia doesn't know he's going to power back his phone at 1:22 in the morning. So his phone is off for several hours. And that time frame is important. His phone is off. Marcia doesn't know this. This is evidence independent of Marcia Soul. Marcia Soul doesn't know that Carson Plank is going to send him that wings report at 8:55 that afternoon. Marcia Soul doesn't know any of this. Marcia Soul doesn't know that Troy King, his friend of 20 years, is going to call him at 10:33 twice. Why is that important? There's no cell-to-tower information. The phone is off. That corroborates Troy King has sent him the truck. The tower information says they met at Starbucks. Independent evidence of Marcia Soul. The defendant has absolutely no reason to turn off his cell phone during that period of time, except to hide his whereabouts. That's the only reason he would turn his cell phone off. What else doesn't Marcia know? Marcia doesn't know that two of her neighbors are going to see this black pickup truck in her driveway that evening. Marcia doesn't know that. Remember the testimony of Bonnie Sutter. They said there was emergency vehicles that evening after 11. She looks out her window and sees a black pickup truck, which she had never seen before, in Marcia's driveway. Her boyfriend sees the same black pickup truck in Marcia's driveway that evening when the emergency vehicles are there. Two people see that truck driven by him at Marcia Soul's house. This is independent of Marcia. Now, what else you have? You heard the testimony of Sergeant Carrillo. Now, he helps establish the timeline. He says there was a dispatch call at 11:03. He arrived at 11:37. He said they're there at least an hour. There's 3 patrol cars and a rescue vehicle with their lights flashing. And what did Marcia tell him? Marcia told you the defendant said as he peers out the window, "I can't believe the police are here." That corroborates what Marcia Soul told you. What else? Evidence independent of Marcia. Marcia doesn't know that the defendant's home security system is going to be turned off from 4 p.m. to 8 in the morning. She doesn't know that. The only time in 9 months of when he's had that security system, it is turned off. Physically, you heard Detective Clay tell you, he had to turn it off. What else do you know? Marcia doesn't know that not only did he turn off his security cameras because that would trace his comings and goings from the residence. Marcia doesn't know that. Marcia doesn't know that he would erase the logs to that security system. Erase. You heard Detective Clay. The only way those logs would not be there is if he had to erase them. That evening of the 11th going into the 12th. That is the only time in those 9 months that those logs, there's no indication that the cameras are working. Only time. And we could also remember later on through Detective Clay's testimony, he does a browser search on his DVR system. Okay, independent of Marcia. What else do you know? 2 deputies visit Marcia Soul at 4:32 p.m. on the 11th. And they don't notice any injuries on her face at 4:32. None. 0. No injuries. What else do we have? Well, we know she has injuries taken by Marianne Dalmrow, her picture. We also introduced her neighbor, her next door neighbor. Remember, Miss Sheila Stiles. She's trained in bruises and stages of bruising that she observed on the victim's face. And what she told you is that the bruising around her mouth appeared to be inflicted, and she opined that it was bruising from a hand, not consistent with a fall or self-inflicted. I suppose she makes that opinion based upon the anatomy of the face. Remember what Marcia said. She said the defendant placed his hand over her mouth, both of them, and her nose. And when you look at the anatomy of the face, The hands covering her mouth. She's got injuries above the lip and below the lip. She's also got injury on the nose. So that's the background. But what does the defendant also know? So he set the stage. He also knows he can't make the crime scene appear extremely bloody or violent. Why? He'd be the #1 suspect. He can't make it extremely bloody or violent, so there can't be a shooting or a knife attack. It's got to be consistent with the fabricated emails and the 1021 Baker Act. So he has to make the murder consistent. So he can't just go in and kill her because he knows she's already complained about him and he's the prime suspect. So it can't be extremely bloody or violent. So first he attempts to make it appear that she dies from a lack of oxygen, and whether the pills were to either kill her by putting them in her mouth, or to let her pass out so he can then go into the car, open the door to the kitchen into the garage, and let her die from carbon monoxide poisoning. And ladies and gentlemen, you know that car was running. You know it, again, not from her friend, but from Marianne Dombrow. Says, when I came over, the car's running. Oh, I could see it vibrating in the car. That car was running. The only reason that car was running is because this man tried to kill the victim. Only reason. Only reason. As well, when you look at all those other circumstances, that was his intent, to kill her. He set the stage. And you could see that. When the responding deputies came that morning, Marcia Dombrow showing them the emails that I'm going to commit suicide. I like that. The Philomena Pereira email. Let me read, because you got to see a little of that email. You're going to get a copy of it and bring it back. It's already admitted to evidence, but I'm going to read it. And if you'll excuse me, because it's pretty vulgar, but I'm going to read it. I'm just going to read a few of the lines on it. Fuck you, you fucking, and he puts NJCE, nice guy. I can't believe your bosses are fucking pussies. No wonder cops are in trouble so much. An old lady and a tear, and they were eating out of my hand, fucking assholes. The old guy and the monkey. I told you I was going to call the police, and that should be no surprise to you. The monkey looked like he wanted to have sex. The old man doesn't look like he had sex in years. This is what he wrote. Sends it to Philomena. Philomena's like, no, I see that anymore. And he's making it appear as if it's from Marcia. But you can see in the email, it's as if Marcia is manipulating the sheriff's office. Who's going to believe her? Who's going to believe her when you read that? And it came from Marcia Soul. It goes on. Why wouldn't you take everything I offered you? Everything I offered you would go away. I told you if there was money, I had plenty of it, but you never take anything. He writes that. That's his fabricated defense of consent. Why do I tell you it's the fabricated? This email is dated 12/22, okay? At 1:43 a.m. And you're going to have a copy of what he sent pretending to be the victim. The fabricated issue of consent, because from the evidence, you know on the 19th of December, just 3 days earlier, he purchased this $1,080 car rotisserie. He knows that. And now she's called the cops, his supervisors, So he's got to discredit her. So he concocts this email and makes it appear she's crazy. Remember, he's in the patrol car, secretly recording his supervisor. Secretly. And he said, Sergeant Legg, Philomena Pereira, she wanted to send an email. I thought maybe she should send it to the sheriff's office. What's your email address? What's your email address? So he sends him this email. He just met Marcia and went through her phone. So he sends her this email as if it came from Marcia through Philomena, and it's titled, "Give to Frank, but do not open." So he fabricates his own email, like "Give to Frank." He wrote it. Then he gives it to his boss, saying, "No, it was so easy. An old lady and a tear, and they're eating out of my hand." That's what he writes. So he makes it appear Marcia Soul was manipulative, crazy, and hey boss, you want this email from him that he wrote? But he's not done there yet. He's not done. He sends that email to his boss. When you look at his statements and evaluate the credibility, look at what he's doing. In the email or the interview with Detective Gady, he goes, "I don't think Marcia's that diabolical." But then he is. He is. That's the email. So he already set the stage. So he had to make that crime scene look consistent with a crazy person. She just got back from being Baker-acted with this purported, he hasn't been caught yet, suicide, and the first day, oh, she committed suicide. Like she said she was going to. She said she was going to. In her fake emails, he set the stage. But you know from the evidence, that's not what happened. What else do you have? Okay. He wears gloves. Marcia Soul told you he's wearing bright blue gloves. As a former law enforcement officer for 18 years, he knows the types of evidence they're going to look for. He knows they're going to look for DNA and fingerprints. And it really doesn't much matter because you know he's been in the house before. Many times. So even if they found his fingerprints, it's just helping Marcia. But he wears those bright blue gloves. And Marcia said, and you heard it through Marianne Don, I think it was Marianne Donbro, maybe it was Sergeant Butler. He had them on the entire time. He had the gloves on the entire time that he was there. The absence of DNA or fingerprints doesn't mean he wasn't there, because you know he was there and they still didn't find him. But he, as a law enforcement officer, he knows the types of evidence that they're going to look for. And that's why he's wearing the gloves. Or Marcia's that diabolical that she had Addie, he wore the blue gloves. With all those other circumstances that I detailed you where he's got no alibi. He's not at work. No one in the world gives him an alibi because, as Marcia told you, he was in her house trying to kill her. Okay, we went through Marcia's statements and what she tell. She was been consistent. Consistent that the defendant tried to kill her. To everyone. He tried to kill her. She may have some time issues and mild short-term memory, but she's always been consistent that this man tried to kill her all the time. She's got absolutely no reason to fabricate. She's older, she's got some health issues. What is his excuse for being deceitful and deceptive? Why does he tell the detectives when he knows he's going to be asked where he was? I was home all night. When you evaluate his statements, I submit to you he's been outright deceptive, deceitful, and I submit not credible. They asked him about where he was. He goes, nothing stands out why I would leave the house. Does he ever mention his calls and texts with Carson Plank? Nope. When asked if he's communicated with any deputies regarding Marsha, he said, Carson Plank, but that was the same night I told Marsha I wasn't coming over to clean the garage. But it was just brief. She's kind of pissed at me because I wouldn't come over and clean her house. Since then, he's asked, you talked to Carson Plank regarding Marsha's soul? No. It doesn't come up in conversation, you know. I'm that guy that doesn't talk about cop stuff when I'm off anyhow. You saw the video of him when he's being interviewed by Detective Gato. And did you notice how his demeanor changed when he's confronted with the evidence? When she starts showing him the checks, how his demeanor changed in that interview. When he was asked about Philomena Pereira, when's the last time you spoke to her? I don't know, a week, 2 weeks. He knows he spoke to her that evening. And he got a text from her, from Philomena Pereira, which he deleted from his account. Why would he do that? Again, he's already set the stage. He sent this manipulation email, the fake suicide emails, and the fabricated consent. What else? He also deleted these chats from 1210. These are chats that he has from Marsha Soul's device to his device. Marsha Soul, they're talking about unrelated topics, then all out of the blue, there's, I'm going to change my beneficiary, go into my account, take $400 as many times you want. These are the deleted chats that are not found in the chats when Marsha Soul's phone was turned over and reviewed on December 22nd. Those chats have been deleted from Marsha's. Why would Marsha do that? Just that threat. But he's got it. That's planning, motive, preparation. In what Ms. Frederick spoke about, what about after the crime has been committed? What are some things you look at intent? So some people said post-event activities. So what do you know? You notice from Carson Plank that he's going to be interviewed. Because she's interviewed. Because they asked Carson Plank about him. And what does he do? He damages his phone that he's been using where it doesn't work. You heard Detective Clay said when we tried to open it, we couldn't, had no power, I had to put a new screen in, and even with that, there were signs of water damage. And he coincidentally purchases a brand new cell phone on January 15th. Why did he do that? Is that a coincidence that he just happens to damage his phone? And remember in the interview with Detective Gato, hey, can you get me your phone? Oh, yeah, it's my friend's truck. And then earlier in the interview, he says, I always have my phone on me. He doesn't have that. But now the phone is damaged. Okay. Now what I'm going to do now, I'm going to kind of transition a bit. Because you got a lot of charges in front of you. And I'm going to make it very easy for you. You probably thought when you heard Judge Mason's instructions, I didn't go to Boston with all an hour of jury instructions. But I'm going to go through those instructions with you. And I'm going to group some of the crimes together. Okay. And you're going to have these to go back with you, so I'm just going to highlight some of these. Okay. For the attempted murder, we only need to prove these three elements. That the defendant did some act intended to cause the death of Marcia Soul. That went beyond just thinking or talking about it. He went over to her house. He did it with a premeditated design to kill her. Well, when you come over unannounced, uninvited, without consent, you only need to do her harm after you've been told to say hello. The third element. The act would have resulted in the death of Marcia Soul, except someone prevented the defendant from killing Marcia Soul, or he failed to do so. He failed in this attempt. Now, right on the bottom, there's an instruction saying, if it is not an attempt to commit first-degree murder, if the defendant abandoned the attempt. Abandonment, I'll give you an example. If he went up to Marcia Soul's house and turned around before he goes in the house to try to kill her, that's an abandonment. It's not an abandonment once you start to proceed to do it. That is where he failed to do it, okay? So if he turned around before he goes into Marcia's house, he's abandoning the attempt. But in this case, he tried. He turned on her vehicle, carbon monoxide poisoning. He tried to do it. The only reason you would do it is try to kill her. The only reason. So it's not an abandonment. An abandonment, you go up to the house and turn around. That's not this facts. Okay. The second charge you got is the kidnapping. Again, where is that? This is when he has her Baker acted for nearly 2 weeks against her will. Okay? That's what this is. The kidnapping is when this defendant sends those fake emails to Dr. Lerner. Her doctor, remember he looks it up on his tough book, Dr. Lerner, and his information. And he sends the fake email to Dr. Lerner. He knows that she is going to be Baker acted. How does he know? He's a deputy. He did it himself, unless. So now there's what is perceived to be the second threat, which the doctor believes, because why wouldn't it? It came apparently from Marcia. The doctor had no reason. In the heading of the email, what you're going to get, it comes from Marcia Soul. So the doctor believes that. And so this deputy knows that Marcia Soul, no doubt, she's going to be Baker acted. And you heard Mr. Lincoln say, well, isn't it ultimately the deputy's decision? What deputy, after now at least what's believed, because they go to the screen before, say on 10/21, she attempted, and Dr. Lerner said she needs now long-term treatment. She now needs long-term treatment because there's now this new threat. And he goes, you know, I thought she liked my wife in the email. So Dr. Lerner that contacts his office, she needs to be Baker acted. The deputy's now saying she's going to kill herself tonight. They're going to do it. He knows. You know, when you have that information, a deputy is going to take her in, that she can be a threat to herself, given the information that they believe. There is no doubt in his mind that when he sends those emails, and it's verified, because she is Baker acted by the deputy. She is. And Marcia's like, oh no, I didn't send it. She is. He knows. knows she's going to be Baker-acted. And she's Baker-acted for nearly 2 weeks. She spends nearly 2 weeks in a facility because of this man. Those are days out of her life that she spent in a facility solely because of him. Because had he not sent that email, she's not being Baker-acted. There's no deputies responding. There are no deputies coming to her house. Had he not looked at Dr. Marner's information and sends a fake suicide email, and by the way, then he ensures that it's going to happen because he sends it to Marianne Dondro, another one. That's what the kidnapping is. Okay? And what it is with the intent to commit or facilitate the commission of his overall scheme of the exploitation. Remember, she's already complaining about it. She's already complaining about it. And he knows he has just purchased this $1,080 car rotisserie, which you've seen in the pictures. And I'm going to show you the records. He's been in her bank and ATM account numerous times, and I'm going to talk about that. But he has to get rid of her, and so secretly, when you read the definition, it doesn't mean a secret. Read that definition of secret. It means the defendant intended to isolate or insulate Marcia Soul from meaningful contact or meaningful communication with the public. That's exactly what happened. She was isolated by being Baker-acted. That's what secretly means. When secretly defined, you've got to look at that definition of secretly, to isolate her. She's complaining to my bosses, so he isolates her because of the exploitation. And even after that, even after he has a Baker-acted, he's going into her AOL account. You have that in the records. So that's what the kidnapping charge is.
That's a little over 50 minutes.
Okay, thank you. The burglary. Now, we prove this 3 different ways. Okay? He entered the structure, that's her house. At the time of entering the structure, he had the intent to commit the homicide or the battery. So he doesn't even have to kill her. Just when he touched her, put his hands on her, there's the battery. Okay? So on that, he's not invited. Remember, he's not invited. You have the phone records. And he remains in the structure, or he remains in the structure without permission. Remember, Marcia says she begged him for leave, and he said, I can't. So he's remaining in the structure even without permission. So that's why I said there's 2 different ways there. He entered without permission. He remained without permission. He committed a battery on her by touching her. You don't even need to kill her, but he's trying to kill her too. Okay? So that's what the burglary is. This is different than the attempted homicide, because in the attempted homicide, he doesn't have to go into someone's house like he did in this. So the element of this burglary with the battery is when he entered to commit just touching her without her consent. A burglary was just going in without her permission. That's a burglary. But on this, it's a burglary with a battery because he touched her in her house without her permission. He was also told, enter or remain, told to leave. Exploitation. Marcia Soul, elderly person over 60, knowingly used or endeavored to use her funds. That's going to be clear, if it's not already, from the PayPal records as well as the ATM withdrawals. He did so with the intent to permanently or defraud Marcia. He's taken her money, and at the time, he stood in a position of custody. Aside from his badge, you know he's been in his house because they give the definition of what it is to assume a position of trust, and it can be anything, okay? And the relevant language is, has assumed responsibility for the use and management of the elderly person's funds or property. Remember, he's the one going out to get Connie Thomas. He's the one driving her car. He's the one checking her out of that healthcare facility, Consular Healthcare, on the 9th of December. He's the one. So he assumes the responsibility. So that's where the exploitation is, when he's taking funds and he has assumed the position of trust. Okay? And from all the factors in contact, that is clear. It should be very clear to you that he assumed that responsibility. And therefore, it's an exploitation of the elderly, and elderly, you're going to have the definition, but clearly starts with someone who's over the age of 6. Okay. Counts 5 through 12. Well, let me go back to the exploitation as well. Not only do we have the PayPal records, as well as the car rotisserie, we have the checks. The checks of $65,000. $65,000 you're going to have them written out to him. What do you hear? Now you have them, you'll be able to see them, but you heard when Keisha White testified. There were simulations and tracings that appeared on the checks. Remember Keisha White, she's telling us. Marsha said, Sol said, I didn't write these checks. They used the check, see how, and you're going to have this check number 870, the one she said she wrote, and it's $4,000. She doesn't use, and you're going to have it, middle initial, middle name. And you had Keisha White put them on the overhead. So that's the legitimate check. And these are the forged checks. And how do you know they're forged? Marsha Sol told you they were forged. You also have the testimony of Keisha White. You also have all the other evidence, the fake manipulation email. Frank, I tried to give you money and you wouldn't take it, so here. The fake manipulation email. And it's sent to the sheriff's office. Why is that? Well, he can't forge checks and give it to himself. He can't forge the check and just put it in his pocket. So he has to go, Marsha, send them to me. Any reason why your fingerprint would show up on one of these checks? Nope. It is. Check. 831. Fingerprint on the check. Again, part of the exploitation. Okay. Now, going through the other charges, 5 through 12, what you have, so what I told you, I'm going to group that. 5 through 12 are essentially the same. And what you have are her financial records. And I'll put them on. 5 through 12 are these transactions. Okay? These are going to match up with evidence for accounts 5 through 12. There's an important thing that you need to know from the records. A timeline. On the 10th of December, Marsha Sol's not there. She's gone. She's gone at Heartland Healthcare from the 10th through the 17th. She's not even at her house. So you saw the videos from Sergeant Caskey. There were 6 videos. There was 2 transactions without videos. But Marsha Sol's not there. She's in a healthcare facility. So all these transactions, you got the 10th, and there are 400, 400, 400. Look at all these. The 10th, the 12th. It's actually the 11th when it occurred. So these are the actual withdrawal dates. Except for the very last one. Marsha Sol's not even there. And on the 18th, the next day is the 19th, when he takes her, uses her PayPal account, and he's added a credit card. So counts 5 through 12 you'll see from the financial records that these are withdrawals from Marsha's account. And Marsha said, I didn't give her permission. 400, 400, 400, but he has a fake email. Take as much money as you want. The deleted chats between Marsha's device and the defendant. Frank, just go $400. Fake, 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 fake. But these are the transactions in which she is withdrawing from her account. And those are accounts 5 through 12. There's a gas station one, I know, but 6 of them have the videos where he's actually, some of them, going in uniform taking money out of Marsha Soul's account. Okay. Count 13 is, this is her fraudulent use of the PayPal records. This is the $1,000.80 card rotisserie. It's on a different bank record where that money is taken from Marsha Soul's account. So it's coming from a different account, but account 13 is the PayPal. And remember, when her credit card is uploaded, Marsha Soul's not even present at her house. Remember those transactions when the IP address we're trying to get into the PayPal account on the 13th of December? Marsha Soul, she's at Heartland Healthcare. She's not even home when the defendant is accessing her account to try to get into the PayPal, upload her credit card. But this is the rotisserie. Okay, that's count 13. Count 14. This is the fraudulent use of personal identification. This is going into her AOL account with her password and username without Marsha Soul's permission, and on the 28th, okay? This is just going into her account. He did so without obtaining the consent, and he did it willfully and without authorization. And that should be very clear. He sends these fake emails, so he does it, and he did it without obtaining it, and he fraudulently used that personal identification information to go into her account. So that should be pretty clear. The next 3 counts 15, 16, and 17. These are the fake emails, okay? These are the fake emails. Count 15, that's the email to Philomena Pereira. So he willfully and without authorization, which clearly he did, it's a fake email, accessed a computer, and he did so for the purpose of devising or executing the scheme. Of course, that was why he did it. It was part of his exploitation and the fraudulent use of information. So this was what this counts, the fake email to Philomena Pereira, okay? Count 16 is the fake email to Dr. Warner. Same elements, the same thing. So count 16 is to Dr. Warner, and the same one on 17. That's to Marianne Dahmer. Okay? So 15, 16, and 17 are those fake emails. Now, I'm almost done. The judge is going to give, or gave you an instruction, you're going to have in the instruction, lesser included offenses. You don't get to lesser included offenses unless you believe the state didn't meet the offense. I submit to you, you don't even need to look at the lesser included offenses because on the attempted first degree murder, he did it with premeditation. So you don't get to less, you don't even look at it. Unless you said the state didn't meet him. I submit to you, there's overwhelming evidence that the state has met its burden on all the counts. Now, the state's burden of proof only relates to the elements, not to specific facts. So I just want to point that out as to what, we don't have a burden of proof to a specific fact. Our burden of proof is just proving those elements. That's what our burden of proof. We don't have to prove which order he tried to smother Marsha. No. Did he try to kill her? If you're comfortable with that, we proved it. We don't have to prove individual specific facts, okay? That's our burden of proof, a proof beyond a reasonable doubt, proving each of those elements. You're also, our burden of proof, just talking about burden of proof, is beyond a reasonable doubt, okay? So a reasonable doubt is not speculative, imaginary, forced doubt. Again, it's beyond a reasonable doubt. Our burden, which I submit, it's been overwhelming that the state has proved beyond a reasonable doubt this case, each and every one of those charges. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to convict this man of each and every one of those counts, because the evidence has proved his guilt beyond all reasonable doubt. Accordingly, I ask you to return a verdict that is supported by the evidence in this case. A verdict telling this defendant that he needs to be responsible and accountable for his actions. A verdict finding this defendant guilty as charged to each and every one of those counts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.